You can't get away with doing people dirty. That's the bottom line. And for all of the musical success that he helped create, his own ego, his own disrespectful attitude, his own nasty ways, it led to Jacques Fred Petrus' end.
Everybody, welcome to day number 4 of the BMM 30, the Black Music Month 30 series here on the Groove Line with your host, Chris Stevens. Today, I'm going to dust off an old piece that I did on my personal YouTube channel a couple years ago, Chris Stevens Writes. I'm going to share it with you guys here who are new on the Groove Line. Today, we're going to talk about an Italo disco producer who helped reshape early 80s R&B, but didn't live to see the end of the decade. Yes, we're talking about Jacques Fred Petrus, the mastermind behind Change, the Ritchie Family, High Fashion, the BB&Q band, all of that. Talking about him today. So hope you guys enjoy the episode.
We're going to look at a disco producer from the late 70s and early 80s who had a hand in some of the most underrated deep cuts of the early 80s. Remember earlier when I told you guys about post-disco, electro, and boogie and all of that good stuff there? Well, some of that came from Italy by way of an island called Guadeloupe. I had to look that up, by the way. I am talking about Jacques Fred Petrus, who produced a lot of anonymous post-disco disco hits in the late 70s and early 80s and had a very untimely end, shall we say. But before we get to that, it's important to note that Black musicians have always had a way of just, making waves for themselves from the ground up, because it hasn't always been all peaches and cream here in the United States or elsewhere. And Jacques Fred Petrus grew up on the island of Guadeloupe. He was born there in 1948. If you're not familiar, Guadeloupe is a Caribbean nation of islands, which is overseen by the French. They speak Antillean Creole there. So at 15 years old, very young, he decided to build himself up as an engineer, mechanic, and sailed off to France. But by the time 1968 rolled around, by the 70s rolled around, he moved to Italy. And he loved music. He loved R&B music, and he wanted to get in on the ground floor. So disco was starting to become a thing in the United States as he, was starting to develop his, his ear and his thirst for music. So he came up with this unique distribution arrangement that allowed him to build money so that he could start making his own records. And he started linking up with a 21-year-old Italian musician named Mauro Malavasi, and they formed Goody Music Productions. And that is when the Italo disco really started popping off. Like, the best Italo disco record doesn't belong to Jacques Fred Petrus, that belongs to the anonymous group Kano and I'm Ready, which of course was sampled for Tag Team's Whoop, There It Is. But Jacques Fred started to get a little greedy very early on. And by the time he moved stateside in, I want to say 79 or 80, he brought Mauro with him, but the musicians that formed some of the earliest Italo disco stuff that GMP was doing, they did not make the trip across the Atlantic Ocean, because he was in New York now. And he was like, all right, I don't have to use you anonymous scabs in Italy. I can use anonymous scabs here in the United States of America. And that's just what he did. If you look up anything that Jacques Fred Petrus produced between 1978 and 1985, 86, there's at least 6 or 7 different groups and bands that don't exist. I mean, Change was pretty much studio musicians. Of course, Change gave Luther Vandross his solo wings in 1980 with Searching and The Glow of Love. High Fashion, that was the one group that I can remember had people in it, because it had one of the greatest session vocalists of all time, Fonzie Thornton, a 20-year-old unknown named Meli'sa Morgan, and Allison Williams. And High Fashion did Feeling Lucky Lately, which is one of my favorite songs ever, because it's so uplifting. It's a danceable, uplifting song about, making sure, having confidence in yourself that your luck is going to turn around. it's a beautiful song. I mean, honestly, it's one of the few dance songs that kind of chokes you up a little bit if you listen to the lyrics. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, just go listen to it. Then of course, again, there was Change, but Change had bops. There was Searching, Glow of Love, This Is for the Very Best in You, Lover's Holiday, um, Paradise. Change of Heart, though, was something that was out of Jacques Fred's hands because Change of Heart was done by an up and coming singing songwriter producer duo, not singing, but just songwriter producer duo named Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. This was in 1984. This is after they had already, struck gold with the SOS band. So I guess Jacques Fred said, "All right, I see what y'all can do. So give Change another hit for me." And Change Your Heart is a jam, one of my favorite Saturday morning run songs. And there's also the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens band with Jeannie, Dreamer, which was sung by Curtis Hairston of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, an unsung vocal talent that died way before his time. On the Beat is probably the best BB&Q band song. That's another one that comes up on my Saturday running playlist that I absolutely love. And of course, the Peter Jacques Band. Peter Jacques Band had an All Right, Let's Go in 1985. I think that was the last serious hit along with Jeannie. And Jeannie was actually, and Dreamer was actually done, I believe, by Nick Martinelli, if I'm not mistaken. But still, Jacques Fred oversaw all this. But he ended up running into some trouble because, by all accounts, he was a nasty human being. Like, he treated people poorly. Like, he'd snap off and fire people at the drop of a hat. He'd fire musicians or just stop using them without telling them that he was going to stop using them. He beat people out of money. I mean, he eventually lost out on his the dude who was his right hand, Mauro Malavasi. He said, "I'm not feeling this. I'm going back to Italy." And that really was the end. That was sort of the death knell, but the death knell really didn't come yet because Jacques Fred got into trouble with the IRS. Yep, they said he was guilty of tax evasion. So he dropped everything. I mean, whatever he was doing in 1985, 86, he dropped it. Whether it was music, whether it was production, he dropped all of that and returned to his home island of Guadeloupe. So by the summer of 1987, he's still he's on the lam. Can't be on the lam because I mean he's back home and he's back home in Guadeloupe. I mean, if the United States government wanted to go to Guadeloupe to get him, I guess they could have. I don't know what the extradition policies were, but anyway, he's back home. He's fallen off the map. The music that he helped, he's one of those folks that helped reshape the popular sound of R&B in the early 80s, but he doesn't get the credit for it because, well, he treated people piss poorly. And apparently, one night in the nightclub, he got into a fight with a random Swiss sailor and went home, didn't think anything of it. Then, of course, allegedly, because there's still some theories about that, but sometime during the morning of, let me look up the date again, because I had the date and then I forgot to remember the date, which always stinks. June 8th, 1987. So, of course, during Black Music Month, this happens. So, on the night of June 8th, 1987, after a fight in a nightclub with a Swiss sailor, Jacques Fred Petrus is assassinated in his home. Mad bullets in his dome. And maybe that's why the hit theory comes into play, because he pissed off a lot of people, not just the United States government, but most likely the New York and Italian mob as well. So maybe that Swiss sailor got revenge, but I don't know if you're just gonna, pump a whole bunch of bullets at somebody's head over a fight, unless you're just absolutely unhinged. This sounds like a mob hit. It absolutely sounds like a mob hit. But that's his story. In 39 years, he went from being a 15-year-old boy on a industrial ship headed for Paris to one of the top producers of early 80s R&B and dance music to not even seeing the end of the 80s. Life, man, it's a crazy thing. It is absolutely a crazy thing. And the songs that he helped produce or oversaw, like you could probably make the argument he was kind of like a Diddy before a Diddy. And I mean, I don't like to mention Diddy on this channel because, of course, he's in all kinds of hot water. But I mentioned it before that Puff really, would just oversee stuff. The musicians and the songwriters would put in the work, and then he just slap his name on the shit. Maybe Jacques Fred was doing that. Yeah, he probably was. Because I mean, everything points to him just hiring random studio musicians and artists, and giving them band names and just dumping them off when he's done when the music is cycled out, which stinks honestly. So, you can't get away with doing people dirty. That's the bottom line. And for all of the musical success that he helped create, his own ego, his own disrespectful attitude, his own nasty ways, it led to Jacques Fred Petrus' end. That's how. You can't keep doing things wrong and not expect wrong to come back to you at some point. That's really what it boils down to. So unfortunately, it's a mysterious chapter because in Black music history, because it didn't last very long. It only lasted about 7-8 years, and it literally is because he made these artists, he made these musicians, songwriters, producers, arrangers, vocalists. He made them anonymous. His work is anonymous basically because you have to literally look far and deep to figure out who the hell were in these bands and these groups that were one-offs, because that's basically what they were. Change, High Fashion, um, BB&Q band, and the Peter Jock band. Those are the ones that literally just lasted longest, or Macho as well. But there were like at least several other one-off groups that didn't really last very long, because Jacques Fred Petrus was just hell bent on keeping all the credit for himself. And pride always cometh before the fall. I'm not a religious person. I've said that on this channel many, many times. But that's one of my favorite sayings that I've heard from my grandmother, my mother. Pride cometh or goeth before the fall. You can be this egotistical, narcissistic, center of attention, selfish type of person, but if you're not careful, your end will come, and it'll come in a harsh way. And that literally is what happened for Jacques Fred Petrus, unfortunately.
And that's going to do it for day number 4 of the BMM 30 series here on the Groove Line. Greatly appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Contact information will be in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe, tap that notification bell so you get notified of all the new videos that drop on this channel. And don't forget to like and comment on these videos because as you know by now, your boy talks back in the comments. So thank you guys for riding with us on the Groove Line. 4 days down, 26 to go. Long way to go, but we still going to get there. Until next time we talk, which will be tomorrow, may you find the groove or may the groove find you.